Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely. I don't. The pain, I think, was more a cramping and tightening of pain. So it had that sort of dull, muscular sort of sense that it was going to tighten up and disappear, and it's become an issue.
Because the other thing you said, which is really quite interesting, is was it about his food? He loves to eat or something, and he thinks about his food quite a lot. So then you would just relate that to, you would go to yourself, okay, so if he's one of those slight persons, so therefore he's, as I call it, he's on the balance. So therefore you would say, well, have you changed anything to do with your lifestyle or your diet, or have you got stress involved, or et cetera, et cetera? So they're always quite good things to start with, because then you can home in on what you want.
Yeah. I think one of the themes that started to come out with my sort of discussions with him over time was what he did when he wasn't running, and how he looked after himself, pre and post event stuff. And it was clear that, like a lot of runners, you might disagree with me, but quite often runners kind of put their shoes on and they get out the door. Is that fair, Mark? I don't know. You have an opinion about that?
Yeah. A lot of runners, they just want to run.
They just want to run. Yeah.
And they forget what they've done the night before.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we want to know a lot more about the pain. We want to understand about his training pattern, whether or not he's changed his shoes, all the things we're talking about. Will give us a picture of why is this pain in this calf now? He's quite an accomplished runner. He's run for some years, but for some reason or other, there's been a build-up of something in his calf brought on by whatever.
I'm assuming as well that it started off quite slowly, or was just a very small. It bothered him very little, because it's taken him 6 to 8 months to come in.
Yeah. And like a lot of runners, I think he got into that thinking that he could run through it. Do you know what I mean? It didn't really stop him. He just carried on and sort of, did it go? Sort of went, but not quite. And after a while, it became quite clear that it didn't go, and he'd stop and be in some discomfort. And then after a period of time, it started to be with him while he was running too.
Right.
And then after a period of time, then also at times while running, he got that tightness coming up his leg into the same leg into his hamstrings. Hello, Wendy. Good evening to you. Nice to see you.
Hi, nice to see you all too. Sorry, I'm a bit late.
That's all right. Nice to see you. We're just having a bit of chat about Eric. Bless him.
Yeah, bless Eric. I was hoping that I'd catch you before you discussed it all.
Well, we're just starting the kind of what would we want to know about him to start with. There's stuff that we want to understand a bit more of. What day, what tell us a bit more about it, really, Eric. And I think we've asked questions like shoes and changing of his running pattern. What's brought this on, and we're just getting to that point of thinking, right, okay, what would we tell him to do? Would we tell him to stop running? Or would we tell him to just slow down? Or I don't know, how would we go about our advice to this chap? We haven't quite got there yet, but we're just kind of unpacking it a bit, really, and having a bit of fun with it, really. It's not, I'm not sure.
So I haven't missed much then. So we're still on the first. Yeah.
We're just mucking around with it, really, and just having is that a fair reflection, people? Reasonable?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Just trying to.
I can see you all tonight on my screen too.
Blimey.
I can see 6 of you. I can normally only see like 1 or 2.
Oh,
I've obviously entered in a different room. So bad.
How are you getting on, Steve? Can you see everybody now, or just?
I can see Steve, Chris, Ruth, Mark, Nigel. Is it
Right.
Nigel?
Can you see people, Steve? You have to undo your mute.
I've got a lag on the button. when I press it, I don't get a response, and then when I press it again, then I get the first response. So it turns the mic off. But no, I can see a row of circles along the bottom. The only photo I can see is one of Hannah, and the rest are just initials. And I can see people when they speak, it comes up after a lag again. So I was expecting like a load of squares around it with different people on it, but
Teams work slightly different. It doesn't give you all those squares. You could try squeezing on some, but clicking on one of the circles and see what happens. That's always quite exciting. We might lose you for a bit. I've done all sorts of things in my time with Teams, messed it up big time. So Mark tends to spend his time around, and sometimes he looks like he's laying down. Other times he looks like he's sitting up.
Yeah.
Well, I've changed position.
Yeah.
I'll leave it as it is for the moment, Chris, and I'm getting by.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. What about the fact that the pain at times seems to fall into the sole of his foot? So it's not just calf pain; it tends to roll into under his foot. Is that why we're thinking about footwear? Is that the thinking there, or where do we?
I was thinking it was probably two different issues myself, but I don't know what other people were thinking.
Yeah.
I had looked at it from two separate issues. Actually, I hadn't combined it until you've now just said actually it could be penetrating down from the calf.
I mean, it could be that sometimes maybe the pain in his hamstring and his calf is making him alter his gait while he's running, and then that's then causing an additional problem, which could be on the sole of his foot.
Go along with that thinking, Mark. Quite like that.
Also, Mark, if you think about if he's got a hamstring, calf, and a bit in his foot, it could be coming from higher up.
Yeah. I mean, I'd definitely be, when we start looking at like functional tests and things, you'd definitely be looking around the hip area as well, and possibly up, going from the hip upwards, just because he's got that tightness in his hamstring. What's going on with his lower back? Is there any tightness around there?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that question you asked first of all, Mark, is really important. As in, have you done something different? He might well have lifted a heavy object and can't remember that, or he might have pulled his washing out of his washing machine or whatever it is. And
Yeah. Okay, so we don't know, do we, at this stage, other than a series of kind of information and gathering of data, and you make an appointment to see him. What would we do before that? Any thoughts about whether or not we kind of advice we'd give him on the phone? Or do I'd
probably advise him to maybe reduce his running. So, I mean, I don't know how often he's running, but maybe reduce the volume and the frequency of it a little bit, just until he comes in. Just kind of don't overdo it with the runs. But I don't know if he was. Maybe with the pain, he wasn't running at all. But that would have been one thing I would have mentioned in case he was running quite regularly still.
I think I don't know what do other people think?
Yeah, my gut instinct would be to have a few rest days and see because if you only have like one day off, then it hasn't got time to heal. So if you've torn something or twisted something, it's the inflammation, you've got time for the inflammation to go down. So I'd probably be suggesting having a rest week rather than
a runner to have a week off.
I know, that's why I didn't suggest taking a week off, because the runner would just roll his eyes at you if you said that.
Absolutely no way.
It's a good idea, Wendy, but it ain't happening, girl.
They could do something else in the meantime, couldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, he does triathlon, so he could be swimming or going on the bike instead of running for the meantime.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I would probably recommend swimming rather than cycling, but even cycling would be better.
Yeah. I think that was my thinking, that he should, come off the bike but get in the pool or get on his bike or whatever, carry on keeping fit and keeping things going, but focus more on upper body maybe, or swimming or board work, timing work or whatever he wants to do in the pool, really, rather than give as when you're saying, when you give it a chance to kind of
to see if it is actually the running that's actually causing it, and if you only give it like 2 days, you haven't given it enough or if you've pinched a nerve in the lower spine, then it's enough just to release it.
Yeah.
So they probably wouldn't come back to me if I asked them to take a week off. But you know, hey, you can be persuasive at times.
Can you? I'll make a little note of that one. Wendy can be persuasive. Yeah, that's cool.
I think the other thing I'd probably be thinking about, Chris, is go and swim or go and cycle. But what about strengthening? Has he done anything in terms of doing glutes, hamstrings, quads? You know, those lower body issues, hip flexors. Because in my experience, as someone said earlier, runners want to run, but they don't necessarily want to do all that strengthening stuff. And when I say strengthening, weights and those kinds of things. And if he's going to have that time off from running, is do some strengthening, particularly on glutes, hip flexors, hamstrings. Start using hamstring and the calves, calf raises, those kinds of things, calf stretches. But if he's going to run, whatever he's going to do, is have a warm-up process and have a cool-down process and some in-between strengthening before we can then get into the treatment room and get hands and eyes on him. Yeah.
I don't know, are other people experiencing your feed is a bit jerky, Stephen? Is other people experiencing that too, or is it just
the sound's a bit jerky?
We're getting it, but we're getting kind of every other word a little bit, Steve.
I'll move into my study. Let's see if that's any better.
You get
the Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
probably because of the jerk. That's why.
Yeah. So this bloke has moved into. Yeah. Oh. We had a meeting with Olivia today.
Is that any stronger?
To take us for a car ride.
Oh,
it was great, wasn't it? It was quite exciting. So we had a little drive around, and it was quite good.
Is that signal any stronger, Chris?
Yeah. Well, let's let it settle and we'll see. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, that's better.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Wi-Fi.
Did you get what I was saying? Did you get the gist of what I was saying about the thinning and
about warming up and calling up and calling down and getting him to do a bit of that prior to him coming into your room?
And a bit of strengthening, yeah. If he's going to run, some glute activation before he runs, in particular. I found a very strong correlation between glute strength and function and calf pain, myself included, I'd say.
Yeah.
The glute activation worked wonders for me, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, so we get him in. He would arrive on our certain day. COVID-19 is a thing of the past. We don't even have to think about rubber gloves anymore. We've got rid of our aprons and our masks, and we can shake this man's hand, and he sits down on a nice comfy chair, and we don't have to wipe everything within 2 meters of him. What would our assessment what kind of things where would we start? What would be our starting block? Where would we start? Maybe start with that. Where would we start with, Eric?
Would we observe how he's walking and his gait, and maybe ask him to run a few steps and look at how he runs?
Yeah, be interesting, wouldn't it? Hello, Sarah. Stick your microphone on, Sarah. Good evening. How are you?
All right.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm hot. It's hot, isn't it?
Yeah, warm and sticky around the edges, definitely.
Very hot.
We've unpacked Eric a bit. We've just had a general kind of what would we want to hear from him and the kind of information we want to gather. in terms of, you know, past injuries, what's
Yeah.
brought on, footwear, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Change of his training program, mentioning kind of strengthening and conditioning a bit, thinking about, you know, trying to understand his pathology really before he walks into our room. He's just walked in, and we're just now in a place where we're thinking, right, okay, so where are we going to start this assessment? Where will we kick off? What's the first thing? And Ruth has just said, look, why don't we just see him walk in, get a nice sense of how he walks, maybe ask him to run a jog a bit, I don't know, but you know, that sense of just watching him on his feet, how does he walk, and sort of taking, you know, where's that going to take us, you know, and that's where we've got really.
Okay, brilliant.
All right, so we're just in that early stages of, okay, hello. Oh, yeah, and by the way, COVID-19 is a thing of the past. So we shaked his hand, and we put him a glass of water, and he's sat down, and we haven't got an apron on or
We
anything.
don't have to be 2 meters away. That's good.
No, we shook his hand. It was very nice. It was a bit clammy, but we shook his hand. Hey, anyway, look, what would we do? What would we do? What assessments? Where would we start off? We'd watch him walk.
Yeah, having a look at the feet, take the shoes off, having a look at walking with no shoes, not supported. Have a look at shape of the legs, knees, going right up to the hips. Are the hips aligned? Asking him about, you know, I'm sure have you been through all the asking him about what he does every day, how long he sits down for?
No, nobody mentioned that. Nobody mentioned that. I told you that he was a teacher and he was a nice guy.
Yeah.
He mentioned if he sat down a lot or whether or not he did.
Yeah. Does he stand up? Is he teachers are normally carrying heavy stuff around with them. That can affect posture straight away.
Yeah.
In an isometric, and you know, they're contracted isometrically most of the time because they're matching the pressure of whatever they're carrying.
Sure.
I'd be looking at the temperature on the calf, feeling the areas for different temperatures. See if it's still hot. See if it's
See if there's any information there. Yeah.
Aside from the usual postural issues, I'd be doing some tests on his instep and how he carries his weight when he stands. Is there any pronation? Is the arch dropping? With the pain in the foot, and if he's talking about the calf in terms of similar to tibial posterior, which we know goes under the arch and supports the longitudinal arch, is there issues with that and all with its strength? So I'd be getting him to sit down, feet flat, then stand up to arch and watch any pronation.
Yeah. How stable is he as he goes up on his toes and back? Yeah.
Other functional tests you can do, have a look at him doing squats, balancing on single leg squats. Maybe check firing orders, glute max. Maybe strength tests, glute max and glute med as well, and just the firing orders I think is interesting. Maybe, you know, his lower back is firing before his hamstrings and glute max. Yeah.
If he's right-handed, I didn't read whether he's right or left-handed.
It's not there.
No, but if he's right-handed, he could be channeling a lot more energy through that right side, overworking it. So that will give us it's not definitive, but it will make his issue worse if he's channeling more energy through that right side. If he has a flat arch, which Steve mentioned, I think, didn't you, Steve? If he's got a flat arch, he's going to be pronating more, kicking out the heel as he leaves the floor. That's going to be working the outer edge of his calf more, perineals especially. and that could be where his pain is starting from.
I like that sling between tibialis anterior coming down onto the base of the big toe, and then peroneus longus coming underneath the foot to the same part of, you know, those antagonists. That sling underneath the foot is such a interesting kind of relationship of you know, stabilizing the footfall. Okay, any other bits? What about you, Nige? You're keeping.
I've got to see his shoes.
I'm just listening. No, it's interesting. My first starting point would be actually just to have him standing, and from a posterior view, you get so much information, whether or not he's overcompensating on one side, whether or not he's basically got a pelvic tilt, etc., etc. So, regardless of moving the person, you just need to see how they actually are standing. And that makes a massive difference, because it can start to answer a few questions, because he might overpronate, but he might overpronate because he's got pelvic instability or etc., etc. So sometimes we try to get them to do too much too soon.
Do you mean in terms of assessment, or?
Yeah, in terms of assessment. Yeah, in terms of we always try and get them to do X, Y, and Z, and we've forgotten about A, B, C. So the stability thing's quite important. So just standing and watching, and then standing and watching on a single leg balance, for instance, left compared to right. Those kind of things gives you a lot of information.
What was I mean, Sarah, what I mentioned at the beginning was this guy actually is I don't see him anymore, but he's a client I used to have some months or years ago, and so I know him pretty well, and over a period of probably 5 years or so, he's moved away now, so I don't actually have contact with him, but what became very clear was that there was a real instability in his glutes, and his hips weren't stable. You know, they weren't stabilizing his running pattern at all. And one of the things that came very clear was, particularly piriformis on his right side was quite short compared to the other side. So he had this kind of real kind of dominant tightness down the right side, and lack of.
That could be a signal of a weak glute max, can't it? Sorry, I'm just going to shut that door. That can be a big sign of a weak glute max on that side. If you think about the pattern of how the hip extends, which is the point at which you propel forward. Once you've when you take at the point of takeoff, you've got hamstring, glute max, and opposite QL, the contralateral side of the lower back working. So I would be looking at that pattern, and also I think it was Nigel that said standing on one leg, and having a look at the like you said, stability, but how much leaning goes on with the body, the trunk, compared to how stable they are on standing on one leg.
Yeah, single leg lunge, single leg balance, and single leg standing makes a massive. You can observe so much. I mean, just compare right to left.
As well. You mentioned that kind of whole kind of squatting and what's stabilizing. What was interesting when it came to range of movement with this guy, his TFL, tensor fasciolatus, were very short. He had little medial rotation, and they were very, as a hip flexor, they were very tight. So it was really interesting that, he had piriformis that was poor in terms of its range of movement, but opposingly, he had His hip flex, not so much his psoas. Psoas was okay. Thomas Test was quite okay, but but TFL and Rec Fem were both quite tight, particularly on his left side.
So you
Did-
say he
did
was
he
a
sit a lot
he was a
during the day?
cyclist as well.
Yeah, triathlon.
Yeah.
Cycling was his strongest, strongest event.
Discipline. Yeah.
Strongest event. He was quite a decent swimmer, and he didn't like running much at all.
Mm. Well, cycling's the worst for strengthening, shortening Rec Fem and hip flexors.
Yeah. What special tests or anything we would do to assess anything? Presumably, this is fairly standard stuff when it comes to range of movement, isn't it? Would you agree? I mean, you check out the hip flexors, you check out the
Faber, Fader.
Yeah, I think I do all the standard tests. Again, I would do the strength test, so pushing up, glute max, and then just check the firing orders.
Yeah. I mean, that picks at your point, Sarah, doesn't it, about is glute max weak here? Yeah.
I'd be interested to see if he had been treating it at all himself first, or whether he'd done his sort of like ice pack, rested it, had it been activated.
Yeah.
With this problem, and then sort of looking at the posterior chain running up the back of his back leg.
Yeah.
But
And interestingly, he's been injury free for a long period of time, and now it's suddenly started again. I'd be asking if he'd upped his game recently and whether the training levels have increased by more than 10% each time. So I'd be interested in the program that he's following.
Yeah.
And whether he's actually training for anything.
Yeah, he had. That's a good question, and I think there was an increasing kind of demand. He wanted to do better. He wanted to increase his times, get better times.
How long has he been running for in total?
I don't. That's a good question. I don't actually. At least 10 years. He'd run most of his life, I think. Cycling was his thing. He loved his bike. When I met him, he'd already been running for several years.
Did he get morning pain?
Morning pain. Did he get stiffness in the morning? No, I don't remember, but I don't think so. Nigel, I don't remember anything too. I don't remember that being a main theme.
Okay.
The other thing I have to perhaps looking at is, if not presently, but had he had sort of sciatic problems in the past? Because often that can sort of penetrate down the calf, but it may not be it showing as sciatic pain at the present time, because the pain's actually penetrated right down to the calf. And it would be interesting to know if previously, in the last 57 years, if that was something that he may have suffered with in the.
Yeah.
I don't know. That would be something I'd be asking him.
No, I don't think he never got sciatic pain, but doesn't the sciatic nerve go quite near the ischial tuberosity as well, don't you? So you can. What's that syndrome you get where hamstring attachments do tend to get aggravated, and that causing sciatic issues? I can't remember. Yeah.
Well, the main issue comes from where it goes through the piriformis or behind it.
Yeah.
That's your main problem, is where it comes from that.
Yeah.
Has he got any problems with the other leg at all? And has he got any back problems? Or ever suffered from back pain?
I don't think so. I mean, certainly in my time with him, No, he would say the other leg was fairly okay. You know, there was pain, and no, there was nothing chronic-y about his bite, about his lower back. Nothing that stood out. Where are we? Are we? You know, the purpose of this is just play around with it, isn't it? And sharpen our thinking about it and get ourselves thinking, well, where would we start our treatment? Have we done an estimate? Have we got a sense of what's tight and what's not and what's aggravating? We would have by now, wouldn't we? By all those tests, we would have a fairly good kind of plan of thinking, right, okay, we're going to start here and release here, and you know.
Was QL tight?
No, QL was tight. No, it wasn't. He was pretty good waist up. He was pretty all right with it. Other than, you know, I think he had that kind of spine eye mid-thoracic stuff of a cyclist. You know,
Yeah.
You know, that sitting 100 mile, whatever it is, on a bike or whatever it is, you know, it's a bit grueling. So, yeah, the massage helped him a lot in just generally keeping well and, you know, post tightness.
Flexibility.
I mean, I would be inclined to sort of start around that hip area if that TFL was quite tight.
Yeah.
I'd certainly be. I wouldn't just be focusing on the calf and just where the painful areas are. I'd be looking at the tight muscles and around that hip area. It might be a good place to start.
Yeah.
And then kind of work your way down and see what else is tight. I mean, going all the way down to the foot. I remember you mentioning about, you know, I've got it written down here. If someone comes in with foot pain, look at their arches. If their arches are normal, you start working around the ankle retinaculum. And if they've got flat arches, you start working around the head of the fibula, anterior tibialis, and the perineals.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I would be inclined to start around that hip area, I think, and just look at the tightness there.
Yeah. Yeah. You would go by your range of movement stuff, wouldn't you? That would give you your framework. Do you think?
Yeah.
I think the hip range of movement is really important because that's going to influence a lot of what happens going downward. So I would be looking not just at Faber, but also just general movement and stability of the hip as well, because if there's no control there, that's another problem. But obviously if it's too tight and the range of motion's rubbish, then you've got another problem there too. And I imagine it would be with what you said about piriformis and that his piriformis was really tight. It's going to be short across the external rotators.
Yeah.
What's the test where you're looking for that hip drop? Is it standing on one leg and you're looking to see whether one hip drops?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember what the name of that is.
Is that the
Trendelenburg.
test?
Trendelenburg, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
It goes back to what you said, Steve, strengthening.
Yeah. Sorry. Last week I had a runner phone me, and what I got her to do was get her partner to video her running from behind and from the side, and very clearly she had her hip drop when she was running. She had Trendelenburg gait. I couldn't do anything with her, but we were able to say, well, look at your glute med strengthening and functioning, and those your glute activation exercises.
Yeah.
But yeah, in fact, I've been thinking about getting people going more public with this and just getting them to video themselves and send them to me, and we can get that kind of dialogue going whilst we're on lockdown.
Yeah. Good to do. I think that in my practice, it's been so many times I've fallen into the trap of getting somebody to think about strengthening, where actually the antagonists, once they've been worked on and stimulated, the the weaker muscle, or the muscle that doesn't feel like it's active, is then finding it's switched back on again. I can't think of the right phrase, and that relationship between TFL and glute max, I think, is so intimate into the IT band that we can spend quite a lot of time thinking about glute max and strengthening and squats and all that stuff to strengthen glute max, where actually spend some time really trying to unpack TFL and lengthen those hip flexors. That neurological kind of switching back on starts to engage and get glute max kind of working again.
It could be a case of.
I mean, what is that? Just me, or where are other people in that thinking?
No, I mean, it could be a case of releasing off TFL and then strengthening glute max as well.
Sure. Yeah. What do other people think?
My thought on this person is muscle weakening or muscle tightening or muscle whatever comes for a reason. And sometimes we think that we can loosen off X and strengthen Y, which might help, but there must be an underlying issue of why they've occurred. So, and I wonder, looking back at what you've said, he's 57, whether or not he's got any arthritic hip issues or arthritic SIJ issues, which is then causing the secondary problems, because there's no known cause for this, etc. So then the idea I always think is trying to balance them back out again, because usually they're unbalanced for a particular reason, and our job should be to try and get that balance back so we're not overstressing a part of the body. That's how I would look at it. So
that's interesting, Nigel. Yeah. So say a bit more about that, Nigel. Where would you start then? What would you?
I would start SIJ. I would start SIJ wise, but I think at that age, at 57, with the amount of running that you're doing, you will cause some arthritic issues once you pass 25. So you have to wonder whether or not there's something underlying, which is then asking, the body to compensate for something, because it doesn't compensate for no reason at all. There has to be a reason why it compensates. And if he's not overtraining and he's not changed his training regime, it has to be some underlying issue, or he hasn't changed his work, or he hasn't caused an injury. So that's how I'd look at it. And then I'd relate it to what, you talked about tight piriformis, TFL, that most people not doing its job, a tight ITB. Well, that has to come for some reason, which, from what you're shouting at me here, is a pelvis which is either stiff on one side compared to the other side, which will then cause the imbalance type thing.
Yeah. That's it then, isn't it?
Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree, Nigel. I'd be looking at SIJ as well and working down from there, because it's glute medius is too what's the word? Distracted. Let's say distracted, trying to protect the SIJ. It's not going to be doing its job of extending the hip. And if you're a runner and your hip is not being extended by the glute medius, then your calf muscles will overwork, and that's where you start feeling the pain down in the calf. But it can be very indicative of the weak glute max.
Yeah.
So okay. I would do the same as Nigel.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy. I mean, when we treat patients, trauma patients are great. They're easy. They're simple. I ran and I sprinted and it hurt type thing. I mean, not to be rude, they're quite easy. Whereas Eric is great. I love those kind of people, because you have to investigate them. You have to ask loads of questions. And sometimes too many people will go straight for that calf and go, right, I'm going to pick a point in the calf, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, which might cause some temporary relief, but they'll be back to see you in 3 weeks' time. That's how I mean. That's just how I look at. I look at things in a global way, I suppose. That's I think
that's our job, isn't it? I think that's job is to and certainly, I mean, we're slightly different professions, Nigel, so we can join up a little bit here, can't we? But I think
I agree totally. Yeah, I think that's what we've got to do. I agree totally. I think all these different professions are brilliant because we're all global people, should be. So, yeah.
And interestingly, what you've rumbled me slightly because I referred him off to get this looked at, and I thought there was an SIJ issue, and yes, there was, and I referred him off to get some work around this area, and to a local osteopath who did some stuff, and coupling with some strength testing and some, him getting some running coaching and technique coaching going, and some strengthening around things, this problem went away. So I think that's the important part, is we utilise all these different professions, and then I harp on this to everyone, that we've all got our skills, and therefore a thing like this, which is classic, requires a whole lot of different professions to sort it out. Yeah. I think my experience of SI joint stuff is that if caught early, fascial stuff kind of can clear it, and it can be kind of sorted. This came on over a period of time. I don't think there was a particular event. I don't think we ever really pinpointed a fall or a jarring or something that actually aggravated it and made it kind of a problem. But it crept in over time, and it got to a point where it caused exactly that, misfunction and dysfunction in his gait, and the rest we've talked about.
Yeah, I would also give them a few exercises that they can always revert back to, because if it is arthritic or something like that, that's not going away, and it might be that the pattern repeats itself, and things become painful again. So I would try and give them, especially posterior chain, to keep the left lower back and the right glute firing, working together, to try and hold the sacroiliac joint nice and firm and closed, so that there isn't too much movement there.
Yeah, that's the problem. At 57, if you've got an SIJ which is irritable, the SIJ is not going to settle itself down unless you control it. And that's one of the main things of stuff to do afterwards with SIJ at 57, is to control the whole system. And regardless, SIJs are quite hard to manipulate, but to control them is what we don't do enough of, I don't think. So.
Yeah. Good point. It was one of the this was in terms of my own kind of I flagged him up because he was quite surprised when I said, look, I think it would be a good idea for you to get another professional in here. I know that there's a firing, I can see that there's something not right here, forward flex, flamingo or gillets, whatever you want to call it. I can see that there's lack of movement in this. And he was really appreciative of me saying, look, go away and come back after you've had 2 or 3 treatments with, somebody else. And on the back of this, I must have picked up nearly half a dozen clients of him feeling, flipping hell, Chris, you just referred me off, and here I am. And after he came back, and it was just very straightforward then. In terms of strengthening and working on, stuff released nicely and everything you're saying, Sarah, absolutely. That whole chain and getting that to contain and hold was the backbone of it, really. And off he went, I flagged him up because he was somebody who he just referred a lot of people to me over 2 or 3 years or so before he kind of moved away. So yeah. He was one of these people who had that lovely vigor, and I put it in the case study because he just made you feel like you were doing him a huge supporting him, and one of those clients that you just love to see. And he was right. He was just rich with life, and he was a fun bloke to be with. You know, he was fun, a lot of fun, and I miss him. He was a really nice guy. And like all our clients, if you get it right, you change their lives, and they feel really appreciative of your sharing and thinking about what you do and what you do well. So that's it. Now we can go home. Finished. So there you go. That's Naya. Good old Eric. Bless him. That's it. Now we can all shut up now. So, any other thoughts about that before we sort of move on other things that might we wanted to think about, or?
No, my thought to you all is I love all your different professions. It's great. I love it. Talk to different people, and always think more globally. We all think we're sometimes a bit too insular, and I think the key element to this is this as Chris has said, is just to think more openly about everything. This bloke's a classic case of it. If you get some people who will focus in too much, and what it actually requires you is to just to think about all these different concepts, and you'll eventually get it, because it'll hit you like a big thumb on your forehead eventually.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay.
It is good talking round and seeing how other people would approach things, because then you can learn new techniques for yourself when you're doing that. I think that's the thing that I would think, because when you're doing it all the time, you do the same. Your brain automatically clicks into doing the same thing all the time. So it's nice to see other people's approaches to how they would do things.
Well, it's really powerful, isn't it? Listening to other people's stuff and and forming good relationships with other professionals who are the people that want to share their knowledge with you. You get people that, I don't know what you guys where you are with this, but I've had people that are quite insular and I've got a secret and I'm not telling you, and then you get other people that are really come and join me. When Johnny comes along for a treatment, come along too. He's happy, she's happy. Come along and be part of this, and we can all learn together. It's great, really exciting. What are your experiences on this? Are you working with other good professionals, or?
And my immediate neighbour is a physio, and I also work with a chiro, so I'm always talking to those two and cross referring. I don't have any close relationship with osteos, but I have referred other people to osteo practices.
So it sounds
good into the. Sorry.
No, it sounds like they're happy to include you and be part of their thinking.
Yeah, very open. If I've got one that I don't really get or understand, then I'll talk things through with them. Mainly the fit, to be honest. So yeah, it's good.
Cool.
My theory, unfortunately, is that we're all individuals, and therefore we work in different ways. So I'm a physio, but I can guarantee you that some of my clients don't work well with me, but they might well work with a sports massage therapist or an S&C person. And I think what we have to do is look at the individual sometimes, and then see where they might go or might not go. And if any of us were right, we would always get every single patient, but we aren't right. I think, and I think too many professions sometimes think they're the only ones that can do things. And I throw patients all over the place, because I feel it. If I can't do it, any one of you six here will be able to do better than me. So I think that's a thought process we should all have, really. Yeah. And that's where it's interesting. Why I'm coming to you is to a cupping course, and people are going, "Why is a physio doing a cupping course?" Well, it might work for 2% of my patients, so therefore, why not? That's the answer I have to a lot of things. So.
Yeah.
And I think it's enriching your skills. And I think, like Chris is saying, you know, sharing how you do things is just, you know, it's a really good idea.
I think so. Yeah, definitely. Okay, should we? Happy to sort of just open up really and just see how we're all getting on, and how you getting on all during your PPE stuff, and you know, what's the thing, and you know, have you decided whether or not you're going to wear gloves yet or not? And you know, just have a general think. I mean, I don't know. I'm not being flippant, and I'm not being disrespectful in any way. I'm just kind of adding something. You might just irritate you, and if it does, then tell me.
I like Nigel. That is brilliant. Are you going to be wearing that with a mask as well?
Yes, I've got to walk. I'm meant to be back on the race course next Tuesday, and I have just been delivered my full PPE, and I haven't got a clue how I'm going to do anything. Is the answer to that? Because
it's so hard.
So I have to wear full PPE apparently, even though we're all tested, and it's just embarrassing because when the job I do is all hands on, and that's what the jockeys expect. And suddenly me turning up with a face mask and this and a visor and a gown and God knows what else, I haven't got a clue is the answer.
Is that driven by your professional body or the?
No, it's not. No, it's very interesting. And my professional body, please say it's the right way, aren't the best in the world. So we have a policy at the moment to do a face-to-face goes through a 10-point risk assessment, and by the time you got to point 2, you'd be embarrassed. So, and it's all about insurance. So we now are going to be insured by British Horse Racing. So we're actually changing our insurance to do it, to be able to do it. So it's driven by the government. It's not driven by the sport, is the answer to that. So to be able to do your job, you're governed by what the government says that you should be doing, which is ridiculous because the government don't understand your job.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But regardless of your attire, you're going back to work next week, did you say, Nigel?
Not sure yet. I'm waiting for an email to see whether or not we're allowed on the racecourse, because we've been deemed as non-essential people to run a race meet, whereas the jockeys feel that we are essential people. So there's quite a big issue here between what the professional body of racing thinks is essential and what the jockeys feel is essential.
Okay. Yeah.
And the dilemma is between the performer and the people putting the event on at the moment. I suppose is the best way to describe it. But if I do, I will take some pictures, and next Thursday I will show you how I've tried to treat for 2 days. That would be quite interesting for everyone.
It's very interesting when you're trying to do it with a mask and a visor, which we've now got the visors as well. My coordination, my hearing, I have become very inept. It is entertaining anyway. So
Well,
you have smiles.
Because all of us, these are the most important things we've got. You know, I mean, that's not just me; it's everyone here, isn't it? This is our most important thing, called a hand and feel and touch. And to have that taken away from you is, I personally think, is quite difficult.
The gloves, as long as they're tight enough, you have got that feel, and the people that you're touching don't normally notice.
Yeah, they have, but you haven't, because I feel the touch, the sensation of you touching the skin is actually very, very important.
It's interesting, isn't it? What's always fascinates me about this is, you know, I have a good friend of mine who's a physiotherapist who's, again, opening her business next week. And I've been chatting to her about the very thing you're talking about, Nigel. And her, you know, I can't remember the name of the professional body for physiotherapists. I can't remember who they are. But they've been very clear that gloves are not required.
They have, because what they've basically said is by the time you've risk assessed it, then they won't be required. But to get to that risk assessment where they're not required, requires you to do so many jumping through hoops, you wouldn't bother. So it's the extent of how you, so you have to risk assess as why would you put your hands on someone? Right. Regardless of whether or not you could ask them to do X, Y, or Z, or you, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the gloves is not to do with the patient you're treating, it's more to do with yourself.
Right, okay. Well, when I asked her about it, because I was just slightly kind of not sure, and she was very clear that, you know, actually the key bits here are about washing our hands, you know, and before and after, and all the sterilisation around the kind of workplace. She's a physiotherapist working with you know, humans in our own practice, and the whole social distancing and triaging and filling in the paperwork on, you know, online, blah 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 blah. But actually, when it came to actual treatment in the room, the visor was there and other stuff, but not the gloves, because you were deemed to wash your hands before and after.
Yeah, I think this swings and roundabouts of all of this about, you know, it's all about, again, I think the problem about it is too much about risk assessment here. It's all about the litigation bits of everything, you know.
Anyway, it's just interesting, isn't it? Two professional bodies, different clear advice around the same thing. You know, that's kind of where I'm going, I suppose. And I gather, you know, the bit that I've been reading quite a bit about, as I'm sure we all are, is the difference between the requirements and the perception of Joe Public. So the requirements might be you don't need to wear gloves, but the presence of wearing gloves for the Joe Public because they feel safer seeing you with gloves on. Yeah, so there's a difference here between the requirements and the perceived risk for your clients. Does that make sense? So, you know, and you might decide to put all sorts of things in place so that your customers feel safe and secure, etc., etc., etc. And there could be a difference.
And that's where it's quite interesting, because I'm going to hopefully go into an environment where everyone's tested anyway. But you won't be testing your clients or temperature your clients. So we're put in a situation where we're going to treat with PPE, even though there are risk assessments of what we're doing with the people. Whereas the problem about normal clients is you're not going to suddenly go to a client, I'm going to COVID test you, or I'm going to test your temperature. So there's sort of a bit mixed messages, isn't there, really?
Yeah, and I think that's still in, you know, we're still in that. I don't know, what do other people think? I'm, you know, just interested, really.
Well, I bought some PPE this week. I got a temperature gun, infrared temperature gun, aprons and face masks and gloves. But going back to the glove issue or the glove issue is what I was going to do was, ask your client if they're happy for you to use bare hands. But I think it's more important to use the gloves when you're cleaning up. I was going to get a washing basket to pop all the clothes in. I think someone mentioned that last week, and it kind of really a light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, what a great idea, just contain all their clothes and shoes, etc., in one basket, and if it's plastic, make sure it's plastic, and then you can disinfect that too. And I saw, from going to the dentist, the overhead light that they pull down, they always have a little sleeve on the handle, a plastic sleeve. So I've sourced some of those that I'm going to put on my door handles. And then the rest of it, I'm waiting to see what the STA bring forward and what, if they've got a setup. And I'm just working through a risk assessment now, but again, waiting for some kind of format of risk assessment to confirm. So I'm trying to get ahead so that I'm not starting from scratch when they give the green light to us, my level of therapists.
Yeah, I think that's really wise, Sarah, isn't it? It's, you know, and the more we submerge ourselves in it and keep thinking about it and talking to people and having these kind of discussions, we end up in a place where we're becoming informed. And you know, when we're informed, we can make intelligent decisions.
Yeah.
Based on risk and intelligent, you know, the right. Well, I don't know. What do other people think?
Just the only problem with like the temperature gun stuff, etc., because they now said that X percentage is now asymptomatic. That's the problem as well. So someone could walk into your clinic and you've said, oh, their temperature's fine, and then they could infect you. You know what I mean? So the problem about it is this COVID is so ridiculous that it could be asymptomatic to someone dying, if that's the right way. Is that we have to unfortunately look after ourselves, and that's and so half the people I'm treating, I'm not interested in them. It's more about me. I'm 55, and you know, so it's about our self-preservation. In some, please, that's my view. Because even though the government says it's no, you've got a cough, this and this and this and this, there's 20 on the WHO website which are symptoms of COVID, and one of them is asymptomatic, which is an interesting thought process, I think.
I think, and I also think that some of those, like the temperature gun, like offering your client sanitizer before they come in, those things are all there, gaining their confidence.
It is, yeah.
There's, I can't
you can
read.
put unnecessary stuff in place. I mean, I'm happy with my gun. I'll keep my gun, but if
I've got a gun. Yeah,
it will show up if somebody is showing that symptom. But I appreciate what you're saying completely, Nigel. It is the range of the symptoms are so wide that you can't, you know. And what if they've been in touch with someone in the last 2 weeks and it's just starting off inside them and they're not showing anything yet? You can't, as long as you're doing everything you possibly can. I think that a telephone conversation before your clients arrive, which I wouldn't normally do apart from booking them, and maybe asking one basic question: what are you coming to see me about? So that I'm starting to get prepared in my head. I probably wouldn't do that normally, but having a telephone, almost not a full consultation, but you know, you've got a certain set of questions and criteria that's going to allow them to walk through your door, that have got to be answered before they walk through your door.
Sure.
But I think we sorry, I'm talking too much here. I'll shut up in a minute. I think the worst thing we always do is we think of our patients and we forget about ourselves. And unfortunately, I think we should look after ourselves as well, because we don't know where the patient's been. We don't know what kind of, you know, what they've been up to for the day. And to me, it's all about you as practitioners. It's about looking after yourself. Is my personal view on all this stuff that we're doing. Is regardless of what people can say and how we can ask all our clients all these questions. My view is I want to look after myself, type thing.
Yeah. Sarah, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, we talked about, you know, the whole concept of, you know, your room and where it is and access into through your home, you know, and how people come into your treatment room from home, and, you know, the safety around that and getting that so you felt kind of at ease, or, you know, you felt it was doable, you know, or the risk, or whatever, what other words you want to put on it, you know.
Yeah, I've bought decorators stuff as well to cordon off the walkway into the house. That was another thing that I bought.
I'm slightly worried because I do a lot of mobile work, so it's just the fact of going into somebody's own house, which I don't know how, you know, whether they've had it or whether they've had somebody in the house with COVID, or if I'm going to catch it going round there.
Well, so that's the whole idea. Is it won't be about them. It's more about you. So my view to you would be, your one priority should be you. So in other words, you need to be able to say to yourself, I can go into any environment because you've protected yourself. That's where the gloves thing is quite important, I think, in some respects. It's about how you look after yourself. That's how if you start that as your number one, then everything else will work around that, personally.
Yeah, especially, I mean, I'd probably be wearing what Nigel's wearing, which is the full paraphernalia if I was going into someone else's house, because you haven't got that peace of mind knowing that they're as good a cleaner as you are, or that, you know, they're not so desperate for their treatment that they're not telling you the whole truth about whether who they've been in contact with and when. So yeah, I would be, if I was a mobile person, I'd be putting quite a strong barrier all around myself before I knocked on people's doors.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because the media have done a fantastic job of scaring the absolute pants out of us. We are convinced that this is lurking around every corner, and if we get it, then it's curtains. We get this horrible virus, then it's, you know, it's not a question of if, it's just when. And that, you know,
yeah. And that's where I think that all us as professionals which are treating other people, we do need to be able to have the ability to do both kind of testing. You know, we should be able to have a test to see if we've got it, and we should be able to have a test to see if we've had it. And this is where I think professional bodies, and I've got it wrong slightly, so we've gone back to them and said, well, why can't we be tested? Why can't someone test us the whole time to see whether or not we've had the blooming thing? You know. Because then at least you've got the confidence. I agree with Chris. Otherwise, at the moment, we're all scared. I mean, only 0.25% of the population have got it. Well, there's other diseases which I don't want to pick up from patients, which I'm sure I could do, which is more than 0.25%.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and there isn't a smart answer here, is there? We're into a journey, and we're into a process. And any thoughts your end, Wendy? Your sharp end?
We've tightened up a little bit where I am, because we've obviously our nearest hospital is Weston. Weston's been shut this week because they've got 70 patient cases, 40 staff cases showing. So that came down as an NHS brief to us. I think that was Tuesday morning, I think. So we've now been given visors as well. Ours is personal. I think I agree with Nigel. It's probably protecting yourself rather than the people that you're actually in contact with. After saying that, we're not all wearing PPE where I am, but that is our choice. At the moment, it's not a government guideline that we must wear it. I'm still more of the ilk, as long as you're sensible. I've been doing the doctors, which we've actually stopped this week. They've been sending them down to me for blood pressure.
I remember you said. Yeah.
So they've all been PPE'd up, and they would be sending people, you know, even for sort of like pregnancy, contraception, that sort of thing, for blood pressures, which they should be doing themselves. There's no life or threatening thing, but they're happy for us to do them. And I've gone ahead and done those. But again, sanitising the place first, sanitising the blood pressure machine, doing that between patients, and they've come to me without PPE on as well. But, you know, I've made them wear PPE if they want me to do it. Because obviously can't get out of the doctor at the moment. So, but we've actually had a word with the GP surgery and said, well, look, you know, come on, this isn't, you know, game. If you're not prepared to do it, don't send them to us. And it's been my choice to actually do them. You know, nobody's made me do those. And again, I would say half those people aren't, they're scared, they're frightened. It's emotional, not physical symptoms. So I think there's going to be a lot of that out there. I'm going to come off the call about 8:45 because I'm speaking to the girl that runs the salon that I'm in. So that'd be really interesting. So actually, I might hop off and then hop back on after I've had a chat with her. So actually, I might go, guys, leave you, give her a ring, and then come back to you, and then I'll be able to tell you what the thinking is of, you know, what's all going back down here. But
That'd be helpful, Wendy. It's always, you know, you bring it because you're where you are. You know, you often bring in stuff that keeps us thinking, and you know.
Well, and my thinking is, you know, I think it's you've hit the nail on the head. The government and news have scared people witless, and you know, you've got to put it into perspective that 0.2% are actually going to die of this.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get it and die. And so I think we've got to hold on to that. And I think the treatments that we're giving people are more beneficial than not doing it. But equally be sensible.
That's a good point.
So, you know, I've got to have that conversation with Becky now. She's got 5 girls, so is she going to keep 5 girls on and still let me use a room? Or is it now that she needs those 2 rooms and her main treatment room for her and the 5 girls?
Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah. So
Well,
it might be just to have a quick call with her, and then I'll hop back on.
That'd be nice to hear your voice. Yeah, great. Thanks, Wendy. That's really cool.
Okay, see you all soon.
Soon. Yeah,
Bye.
I've got to go. I've got to go now as well, so I'll speak to you next week.
Cheers.
It's been really
Yeah,
it's great talking to you all. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for your input. Take care. See you in a bit. Cheers. Yeah, well, I suppose the bit for me is we know, I mean, Steve, you must know a bit about this, you know, the only way you really control somebody or control society is by putting a fear of God into them. And if you frighten people out of all recognition, then they will stop doing what you ask them to do, because they're absolutely going to wet themselves. If, you know, how else would you get people to stay indoors and lose their basic liberty of being able to go around the streets? You wouldn't say, excuse me, you've got a bit of an issue. Would you stay indoors for a bit?
Well,
No way. Sorry, Steve.
One of the issues that they started all off with was because about if you start the lockdown too early, then when it does lift, then it's like exploding a champagne bottle. And that's proven to be correct, because people are frightened, but they were so locked down that there's going to come a point of release. So they, of necessity, if they're going to protect that number and not overwhelm the NHS, they've had to give that kind of message. And you have to be strong. It's like any kind of initial control. You go in, you dominate the situation. And that's what the government and the press, I think, the press for different reasons, but have tried to dominate the situation to get people to do what they want. But it hasn't lasted forever, and it's going to, I think there will be a second wave, and there'll be a bigger third wave probably. But it is what it is. We've got to do what we've got to do, haven't we? We won't be reopening, even if the STA give us the green light. We're not going to reopen here for a while yet, because we've got a vulnerable house member in the house, and it's we've got to protect her. So
absolutely,
unfortunately, we're going to have to think of some other things.
It's a very personal thing, isn't it? And you take, as a family or a unit or whatever, you look at that carefully and make the appropriate decisions, don't you? Of course you do. And everybody's in that same place. I mean,
I actually don't know anyone personally in the widespread of friends who has had COVID. I haven't, you know, that's how distant it is from any one person. So I'm not running scared, if you like. I'm ready to, you know, I want to open, but the important thing, I think, is giving, when the customer walks through the door, if they are one of those people that are filled with fear, they have absolute confidence in everything that you've got in place.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
And that's all you can do, isn't it? You know, and then you can say, do you want me to wear gloves? Yes, please. Okay, here you go. I've got some gloves. Pop them on. Off you go.
Absolutely.
And
and
it might be different from one client to the next too. It will be different from one client to the next, but you've got to judge and you know, very quickly judge in your mind what, you know, whether how much of the whites of their eyes you can see when they walk through and how scared they are.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know. I mean, I suppose I end up thinking that these kind of discussions, the only way we move to a place where this becomes manageable is if we have intelligent discussions about it and think it through and pull it apart and put it back together again. I mean, Ruth, you know, you going mobile, I feel your anxiety. You know, how you would set up a situation where you were safe to go into somebody's house who could be clients that you've known for 5 years. Doesn't make any difference, does it? You know, how do you do something so that you feel you know, safe? You know, it's a toughie, and I'm not sure there's a very quick answer, is there? There's just a
No, because my theory is that if I PPE up, do I PPE up outside the house? Do I PPE up when I get in the house? Do I take it off before I get back in the car to drive home? And then what about, you know, the couch cover case and everything else?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My daughter had a baby earlier this week, and I happened to drive.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's good. It's really, thank you. It's lovely. But I happened to drive past her house as the midwife was going to come in and see her, and this midwife, flipping hell, you would have thought she's about to go to the moon. She was completely covered up with the whole thing, and she was standing on the doorstep. So I don't know if that helps, Ruth. It may or may not help, but it sounds like you get yourself all rigged up and ready to go before you walk in the building. I don't know.
Right, Grandad, I'm going to have to go and help put my grandkids to bed. So congratulations. And, maybe
really nice to see you, Steve. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Steve.
You too, Sarah. All the best.
All the best.
Take care. Look after yourself. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Well, you're back fast, Wendy. What's happening then? That's it? You're not opening or what?
No, she didn't pick up.
Oh.
To go off thinking that I've been rude. So I've got my phone here. So if she calls back, I just said I've just tried to call you back. Give me a call when you're free. So she might be putting her little one to bed. She's a little girl, so she might be putting her to bed at the moment. I did say I'd call her about 9, so I am a little bit early because I was going to do it when I hopped off here. Yeah. But I just thought it'd be interesting for you guys to all know what's going on here. I've also WhatsApped the other girls on the courses that I was on at Cotswold today to say, which was a little bit late, I just seem to be just chasing myself at the moment, to say, hi guys, you know, how's it all doing? How are you all feeling? You going back? Why not join us on a Thursday night? So you can get some support and help. So I haven't heard back from any of them yet, but that was only earlier today.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, so I thought that would be a nice thing. But I don't know about you guys, you know, down here, like walking through Wedmore, you wouldn't even know there was anything going on half the time.
Yes.
Hello, is there anything going on?
Yeah.
But, you know, it's hard, isn't it? It's just, and I just find what I'm finding hardest this week, which I haven't found so much, is everybody else policing what everybody else is doing. You know, about whether Mrs. Jones has gone out in the car for a week, or whether so-and-so's seen their granny, or you're only supposed to be seeing one person and they've seen 2, and it's like...
That's really funny you say that, Wendy, because it's all flared up in our village this week, and I don't think it's because of what's happened. I think it's always been going on. I think it's just, we're all just getting a little bit, you know, the steam is rising off the top, out the top of the kettle now, and all the pots are going to pop soon, and people are getting cross and angry, aren't they? Because, well, maybe there's change now, because we've had some good news tonight, haven't we, on that front?
I haven't heard tonight.
Oh well, we can meet up you can meet up in a group of 6 now.
Can you? I haven't.
Yeah, and obviously social distancing from different households still applies, but you can meet in a garden. You can meet in your garden, and they can come pop in and use your loo and that kind of thing. But so it's far more sociable now, and I think that will just be really good for everybody.
Yeah, I think so too.
So we're all coming round, Wendy.
Yeah.
We're we're all going to come round, and I'll bring some
Some champagne.
Yeah.
crisps. I was thinking crisps, but anyway,
Yeah, plenty of crisps, vegetable and normal.
really, that's all right. Good. Good.
I've got this most lovely balcony, and I had my bike arrived this week after 21 days. So I was so pleased. But the poor girl that was on the PDD lorry, the box was 3 meters by 2 meters. I've only got like just a bit bigger than a kid's bike, and they made her put it on her own. The social distancing. The box was like 3 meters long.
Oh my life. Poor girl.
Yeah, and she was such a petite little thing. And I said, "Oh, could you help me bring it round?" And she was going, "I don't think I can get it up to your front door." I said, "Well, I don't think we're even going to try and get it up those stairs." Yes, had a good week this week, but knackered, absolutely knackered. So I'm looking forward to getting back to just doing a bit of reflexology so I can sit down during the day. But the good thing is I was only open for 3 weeks, being back in the pharmacy. All joking apart, like 4 of the people that I'd already treated have rung me and said, "Please come back. Just ring us as soon as you're back. We're coming." Mm-hmm. So, and they were going, "Can you not treat us now?" And I'm going, "I don't. I'd love to. And if I was a different character, I suppose I could have done it on the quiet, but actually I don't want to lose my accreditation. So, they're just going to have to hold on a little bit longer."
I'm on a Facebook page for massage therapists, and people have been posting on there that the FHT are warning people that journalists are phoning up trying to book treatments now and trying to trick them into being given them.
Really?
Wow.
To what you're saying, Sarah, doesn't it? We kind of know that the process of how people move from being frightened to suddenly giving a little bit of rope, then we end up in a paranoid place. And at the point where we're paranoid, we like to point the finger at somebody else.
Yeah.
Do you know that person at number 27? They really messed up. I saw them the other day. 4 of them got in the car. How the hell is it? We know that this is a well-documented way of which how people deal with stress. We move into a paranoid place where we point fingers at people, and this is well documented. And that's why today, very quickly, they've got into. By the way, you can have 6 in your garden now.
Yeah.
So certainly, the paranoia. I was just about to tell the government about number 27 because they've been bending.
Yeah.
I know they have, and now we can't do it.
I find it really, it's hard to get your head around when yesterday you can't, I was veering away from people, and my mum was desperate to come up and we won't tell anyone. I was like, no, absolutely not. And now she's coming on Monday, and it's I find that really hard to go from here very quickly to have to change all my values. Some of them are, some of them are my values, and in this whole situation that we've had over the last 10 weeks, I think it's really highlighted how different everyone's values are, and for for different reasons. So for example, Wendy, I know you're seeing your mum because you have to, whereas if somebody saw you going into your mum's house, they might say, "What are you going in there for? You shouldn't be doing that." There was a thing on Facebook, a video of a lady in B&M stores. That's right. So a worker went in her uniform, in her tunic, and she went in and she got shouted at by a member of the public for coming into the store having been to work that day, but she was just getting her food for her tea on the way home. And it's really I popped something on Facebook that just said, you know what, we're all getting to that level now. Let's just live and let live. There's probably only a few weeks left before we can all just go poof, and let a bit of steam off.
It's the old people are like just desperate to get out, but their neighbours are like, they shouldn't be out. God, they're 92. If they die, they're going to die. In the last 6 weeks, we've had 8 of our patients, which are really lovely, that have died. but not because of the coronavirus. The last like 3 months of their life has been miserable because nobody can visit them.
Mm.
They've
And
died
that-
slowly.
And actually, Wendy, have you found that they're the more sort of well, I've had a great life. I'm not really bothered if I die now.
Yeah, and that is it. And they would have loved everyone to come around. If you brought coronavirus with you, so be it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was still delivering prescriptions on my bike, and we'd be having these little conversations through the window, and they'd be going, "Oh, just walk around the back and see my wisteria." And it's like, actually,
That sounds like a very dodgy invitation.
yeah,
Come and see my wisteria.
I get up to all sorts of mischief. So that was a bit.
You get offers like that very often, Wendy. Is that a common thing?
Common thing. No,
I think there's something you're not telling us.
I was going to say that most of those are passing along now, but no, and they just, and actually people have been in this week, and actually I quite like this delivering because I've had a fruit cake, I've had some foam bar, it's like flapjacks. I'm going to just keep that job up all the time. I think it's just because I've actually bothered. We've made a few phone calls. I've actually checked they're okay. Do you want me to bring anything else up from the shop when I'm coming? Or, and half the time they don't want you to, but the fact that you've offered and, they know I'm there, or some of them now say, oh, I only want to see Wendy. And it's like, oh, please, can I change my mind? Ian's a lovely boy. Yeah. It's nice, and it is, I wouldn't change any of, well, yes, I would change it because I don't like the coronavirus, but I wouldn't change the way I've acted or what I've done throughout it. And some people won't agree, and some people will want to police me. And, I've been seeing 700 people a day. I've been seeing my mother. I could have killed my mum, but that was a choice that both my mum and I took. And if I obviously went down with symptoms, I wouldn't be there, and the 7 people that I've worked with very, very closely throughout this, we haven't had PPE. We've been touching shoulders, we've been touching keyboards. It was a risk nobody made us do it. We had that choice.
Yeah.
Would I turn it back? No.
You still there, Sarah? Are you in the background?
Have we lost Sarah?
Yeah, it looks like she dropped off. Anyway, it's an interesting, and I think it's interesting. The other bit I'm going to throw in, just because this is what I like to do, is that we have this interesting paranoia, don't we, and this sense of dobbing people in, and then we have all these heroes everywhere.
Yeah.
So you've got this kind of polarity of social groups that we got these people that are working really hard, committed and really doing their stuff. And suddenly overnight, they're heroes that we worship and we raise money for. And then we're dobbing in our neighbours and people that we, this polarity of emotional stuff keeps us in this place where we're frightened. So it's a cocktail that will implode at some point. Hence today I think we can see 6 more people a day, so I feel quite good now.
Yeah, I feel quite good, and I'm so pleased that they're not talking about Cunningham anymore. Oh my god, that was doing my head in. I was like, that's my opinion. Yeah, and I was thinking, well, if he did breach the rules, let them reprimand him in the necessary way. I'm not interested. Let's save another 40,000 people, not talk about that all week, and it's just the negativity and the, like you say, they talk about that rather than focus on what we're doing. Yeah. But I did enjoy your video, Mark, where that was absolutely amazing. I watched that at midnight when I got to my emails last night. Do you know, that was the loveliest thing I saw all day. And I was like, well, he's so professional. He was telling me he couldn't do it. My God, you need to get out there, Mark. Do it. You would think you've been doing it for years.
We haven't got your microphone on, Mark. I can't hear you.
Yeah, put your phone on, Mark.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, there's definitely room for improvement.
Honest to God, I've watched lots over the last
just to put you in a picture, Ruth. We over the last, I don't know, few weeks, we've been playing with the idea of making videos, and Wendy here made a fantastic video of
No, it
of
was
baked
amateur.
potato and baked beans and grated cheese. It was quite amazing. And somewhere in that, I think, I can't remember, was it last week or the week before, we teased Mark about doing a video of using a tennis ball to massage your calf. And he came up with this amazing video a couple of days ago and sent it to Wendy and myself, and quite spectacular.
Got some nice feedback.
Oh my God, Mark, get on with it. I need another exciting Wednesday night. I was just like, oh, I hope there's something less dull in my inbox. Oh, a video from Mark. Is this his vegetables? And I thought, wow, who's this professional young man? I've been watching all these FHT and AOR videos. They don't hold up, Mark. Watch
Oh,
a
I
few.
thought I'd have to get, after last week, I thought I'd have to get something to you guys before this week's session.
Yeah.
It was just keep it up. And
Did I send it to you, Hannah? Did I send it to you?
Yeah, sorry, I was looking for my microphone button. Yeah, it's amazing, Mark.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, Ella. Yeah, I'm not sure. If I can make it a bit more natural, that would be nice.
No, I don't think you do. I think you were just right. The intonation, the pause, and when you spoke, the way you had the camera so that you could actually see what you were doing. And by the end of it, I was thinking, where's the tennis ball? I don't think I haven't played tennis for years. Where can I find a ball in
You
that?
have to dig out a tennis ball and give it a go.
I know. And I was thinking, and that's how much it engaged me, Mark. And that's why I wanted to get across to you. When I emailed you back, you definitely need to keep it up.
You could have access to this video, Ruth, but there's a involved. Mark is now paying for you to see his video. You have to pay him.
Good.
Oh dear.
Worth it. So I'm waiting to see the next one, Mark. So what's
Yeah,
this?
well, I'll see. Yeah, I'll see. Chris has already spoken about doing another video. We're going into more detail, a bit more technical, as if you're doing it for another therapist. So
Yeah.
you're really going into detail, talking much more about the muscles
Yeah.
and why you're getting into the
I think
stuff. So
I think you need both.
yeah,
So,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so, Wendy. I think you're right. I think both
yeah,
is
it's a good
great.
point. Yeah.
So if I
it's,
came to you and I didn't know anything, that was absolutely perfect. But then if you want to get in, I could see you running somewhere like Chris and having people under you.
Yes.
Well, no competition for you, Chris. Not like
That's fine. If you want a job, Mark, I'll give you the keys anytime.
no, I don't know about that. No, I think you're doing a good job, Chris.
but what I'm saying is you could do that. You know, you've got it in you.
Yeah.
So don't waste it. Don't waste it.
That's very kind. Yeah, no, I think videos are really useful. They're
Only
definitely
if I
really
get the
useful.
free videos.
Hey,
Only if I get the free videos.
yeah, of course you do.
I thought there might be a sort of a slight kind of, after all that wonderful praise, there's always a sting in the tail, isn't there?
Yeah,
If you do well, I want it for free.
she was buttering me up.
Yeah, I think so. Seduced you, Mark. Did it
Yeah.
seduce you?
Yeah, and it
Loved
worked.
it. He loves it.
Yeah,
thank you.
it totally worked.
Definitely another one this week, Mark.
I don't know about this. Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah. Well, let's see. I'm not making any promises.
No, we don't make any promises. But you know, very soon get another one out because you haven't got till the end of June. Remember, end of June's the next deadline for you.
Well, that'll probably be sooner actually, because I've almost got it done. I'm pretty much done with it actually.
Perfect.
Content.
It's just
So
right. Website.
yeah, well, the content for it, which I will probably send to you before the website's finished, just for you to have a read through the content, to see what you think. Just making sure I'm not making any wild, outlandish claims.
Just to put you in the picture, Ruth. Mark's been talking about his bloody website for about 4 months, and it's always been in creation. And we've never seen anything or read anything. It's all about to happen. So again, we've been putting loving pressure on him to get his finger out and do something about it.
I think you realise that I need deadlines to get stuff done.
Get it done.
So
So
we put it on. So Ruth, what do you do?
I'm just a massage therapist. I do baby massage, deep tissue, pregnancy massage, and I'm in year 4 of 5 of chiropractic school.
Oh, amazing. So I don't think that's just to any of that
I'm also a mummy as well, just to throw it in there. But
Just-
I
in the mix. Yeah.
should be revising because I've got an exam in the morning, but said,
Where are you doing your chiropractic training, Ruth?
McTimoney in Abingdon.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Good place. Are you enjoying it?
Love it to bits. Really, really love it.
Yeah, love it. McTimoney's, has a real nice niche. McTimoney chiropractic work. People who don't want that.
Back cracking.
Yeah, who want that kind of alignment work. It really has a nice niche. Niche. Yeah, great. So you're part-time alongside a family, or forgive me, I don't know.
It's they don't call it part-time, they call it full-time extended, so it's a 4-day weekend every month.
Oh wow. Okay. So okay.
And we've been doing it online, believe it or not. So we've been sat down. Last weekend we had 3 days of lectures and we were sat down on Teams for 3 days. April we had 7 days of learning about reading x-rays online, which was a bit heavy going. And we've got exam tomorrow morning, reading x-rays, half-hour exam, doing that online as well.
Wow, it's great. Good on.
Come back on and let us know, won't you, how you get on?
When we find our results.
Yeah. Well, just let us know next week, see how it went.
No, that's good for you. That's amazing, Ruth. And that kind of study. I mean, it's not just the 4 days a month, is it? It's in between times. You've got a hell of a lot of case study work to do and sort of on stuff. So bless you. You're working your stocks off alongside life,
family,
family, all the rest of it. Yeah, bless you. Yeah, that's no mean feast. Yeah, good luck. That's amazing.
Okay.
And you'll have a set of skills that will be quite
unique.
That soft tissue and that whole unique is amazing. Fair play to you.
You'll have a lot of openings there. When you haven't got loads of childcare too. Actually, you look wide awake. Oh my God.
They're 3 and 5. So when I did my massage course, I think the youngest was about just coming up to a year or just before then. No, it'd just been born or something silly like that.
You like a challenge then?
Yes.
Oh God, so that's good. So it'd be nice when we can get out of lockdown so you can have a bit of childcare elsewhere, won't it?
Definitely.
Yeah, so you can have a bit of you time, I should think.
Whereabouts are you, Ruth? Whereabouts are you in the country? Near Abington, or where are you?
No, I'm in Swindon.
Okay. So that's not far. I mean, it's a reasonable journey, isn't it? Yeah. Not that it makes any difference at the moment because you're online.
Yeah, we can be wherever we like in the world today.
I know.
I just wish you guys were a little bit closer.
Quality.
Actually,
just
anyway. It didn't stop me because I think if you want to do something, and I definitely want to do I was looking the other night when I was in bed, when I can't sleep in the middle of the night, I'm looking at all these things. I think I'd just go to sleep. But, oh no, that looks interesting. And then I'm like 4 o'clock. Oh God, I gotta get some sleep. But you've got the refresher aromatherapy, I noticed. Did you remember that, Hannah? I think that's August or something. Was it? Yeah. So I might just.
There's one coming up, isn't there?
Yeah. So I think as long as you don't mind me bringing my germs up from down south.
It'd be nice to see your face. I mean, I think as a business, we're sort of heading towards that July kind of opening. That's where we kind of see ourselves kind of starting to kind of open our doors again. We will.
I think that's feasible now, doesn't it?
I think so. It's not. There's no clear kind of. We've got to do our assessments and make sure that the place is safe and all the rest of it. There will be issues around the restrooms and stuff and soft furnishings and all that kind of stuff. Issues around the kitchen and people using the kitchen or not.
Flip biscuits.
Sadly, you bring your own flipping biscuit. All that kind of stuff. So there will be some themes, and we got to obviously, but it's I'm hopeful that
if you want it to happen, you'll make it happen. I know you'll do it.
Yeah, I think it's right. I think we get the right kind of thing in place and the right risk assessment in place, and the common rooms won't be able to be used, the kitchen won't be able to be used, but and we limit 6 people to a treatment room, to a teaching room.
Oh yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. And I think it's looking like that's going to be doable, because we're not working with patients. We're working with fellow students who come providing they've had no symptoms and blah 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 blah. And I think that gives us a slightly different angle than if we're working with patients who are poorly, or whatever.
Yeah. And I think you're at the same sort of risk as hairdressers, aren't you? Or
Yeah, dentists. I think they locked me to a dentist the other day, which I don't know.
Yeah, so that's that's the way I'm thinking about it. Once I can get back to it, hopefully, well, the dress shop I work in as well, they were on about going back after the 15th. So that's looking hopeful as well, but the whole of Wedmore will be opening up. The pubs around here have started opening up for takeaways 3 nights a week, so that's all new. Proper food twice a week now for me. That's good.
Yeah.
No more jacket potatoes and beans. But so I think, and they were all talking December opening up. Now we're talking end of June, July. So hopefully.
Yeah, and I think, we're going to go through that period, aren't we? Common sense prevails, and hopefully people will. It's all about social distancing, and I'm sure there will be times where regionally there's a bubble and things start to sort of numbers increase, and we take a backward step where we can only allow so many people in, or that thing can't happen anymore, and we go through a few weeks where that's going to be peaks and troughs. So I guess that's going to be how things are.
With their track and trace thing, that's where they think they can start opening up, and then when there are hotspots, then they can just take action regionally, can't they?
I think that. You what? Say that again, Wendy.
It's can't they? Yeah, just in certain regions, isn't it? Which would be much better.
And that sort of makes sense. I can sort of get my head around that. I'm worried about my own private sort of liberties, but that's me being a bit paranoid. But
well, I'm still here, Chris.
Sorry?
I'm still here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're, I would say this week we did 6,000 prescriptions. I mean, it's just been like one person after the other, after the other, after the other.
Wow.
And I'm still here.
No, it's for me. It's about it's something about my loss of my own private kind of dignity. The fact that everything will be, if it's all on a track and trace system and an app, I feel there's a paranoid bit of me that ends up thinking, well, people will be able to tell me where I am and what I'm doing, and that whole kind of. But I can find that's my issue. That's not anybody else's. I get that.
Yeah, but lots of people feel the same way on that, I think.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who feel the same way as well.
I feel a bit like that, and I think it's like everything, it's about adjustment, and you have to sort of get on with it, really, I guess.
Well, it's also because you could be contacted. They will contact you if you come into contact with someone who's tested positive. So that person who tested positive will then have to give your contact details. Oh, and I'm not sure how they get your contact details, or whether they're allowed to. I mean, I don't know.
Off your phone, I think.
Yeah.
Hey?
It comes off your phone.
Right.
So it would register on your Bluetooth that another phone's Bluetooth.
But the app's not even ready yet. They're just doing this purely by telephone, aren't they?
Okay, you know more than me, Mark. I haven't really read through it, to be honest. I'm not really tuned in. But there's
you've got to be by them, because I was saying at work today, I said, but like we probably, we're all going to be locked up for the next year.
Yeah, no, I think what happens is
you've got to be with them longer than 15 minutes, haven't you?
Yeah, because so if, for instance, if I start getting symptoms, I can then get a test. Now I send that test away. Then if that test comes back positive, they will call me and say your test is positive. who have you been in contact with over the last, I don't know what the time period is, say like 2 weeks, you know, where you've been less than 1 meter away, or you've been in contact with them for 15 minutes in an enclosed space. And I have to give all those people, and then they then contact those people and say, right, you now have to isolate for 14 days, whether you have symptoms or not, because you've been in contact with me and I tested positive. I think that's currently how it's working.
Just going on holiday, wouldn't it? Oh, I'd be going, oh,
Yeah.
that's
What
amazing.
about the 15 people you brushed past on the way to the Tesco's sort of, you know, buying my baked beans?
Yeah.
You weren't with them more than 15 minutes, so you couldn't afford
This
it. Chris.
person, can't remember their name.
It's crazy.
And it relies on people being honest as well. I could just say, well, no, I wasn't in contact with anyone.
Yeah. Anyway, we will wait and see. We will wait and see.
So yeah, time will tell whether it proves to be effective or not.
Yeah.
Anyway, Eric is now completely sorted. His SI joint issue has gone away and he's back running. And
So what was it then? Was it a degenerative issue with his SI joint?
he was just very locked up in his SI joint on that right side.
Right.
You too.
And he saw a good lady chiropractor who jumped around and did what they did and freed up that joint. I think he went for 2 or 3 treatments, just freeing up that area. I worked in between the treatments just to do some soft tissue work. And it all just got better over time. He also went for some just some gait analysis and running kind of technique, because I think he got sort of into a different rhythm, and he was into a bit of a pattern because it had gone on for such a long time. And I think we're talking to him about it. We decided he knew somebody who could give him some kind of I don't know, what is it? Well, you know more about this, Mark. You know, that gait analysis, or
Yeah. So you can change your gait analysis, and then they can give you cues where you can adjust your running form. I mean, it can be things like just increasing your step rate and things like that, as to more sort of physical things where you're actually, you know, much more kind of conscious of changing your form.
Yeah, and that's basically what he did. So it was soft tissue work, 3 treatments. I remember we're going back a while, but it was about 3 treatments with a chiropractor, which he knew, lady chiropractor he knew, and then some soft tissue work with me, and I just then stayed in the background, maintenance-y, every 6 weeks, 2 months, something like that. Nice chap.
Brilliant.
Right.
We all better go to bed now. I've
What?
got to go to my mum.
You've got to go see your mum, and you've got to chat to your person about your.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll just drop you an email, let you know what's going on, so you've got an idea in the week. So
Well,
just you guys.
It'll be lovely. Come and tell us next week. Give us an update next week and where you are and what's happening.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. Yeah. So when just give me a heads up, Mark. When's the website data coming through? Here we are on the 28th of May. So 1st of June on Monday. Just want to get an idea, just so I can plan.
I can get.
I'm teasing you, Mark. You don't have to. You can tell me to stop.
I will be able to get it over to you before the session next week.
Wow.
Hey.
Wow. I'm going to write that down. Right before the session.
I've made some good progress on it.
You've done brilliant. And
That's
we want to hear, Ruth, how your exam goes tomorrow too.
Yeah, that would be nice to hear, Ruth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice talking to people. As always, Thursday nights are nice, and it only works because people come and share and talk and give up their time, and it's just lovely. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck with your exam tomorrow, Ruth.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hope it goes well.
You'll be fine. If you can manage all you're doing, you're amazing. You'll be fine.
Right, guys.
Thinking of you.
Right.
Have a good week.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting. Thanks for sorting it all out.
Thank
Chris
you.
and Hannah.
Take
See you
care.
next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Night night.
Bye. Good luck.
Thank you.